evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Noticias Univision Chicago, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. On the show tonight, from Supreme Court decisions to support for immigrants, we're checking in with Congressman Jesús Chuy García. Latinos in cardiac arrest are less likely to receive CPR than other groups. We show you how to do the potentially life-saving procedure anyone can perform. A partnership working to make monuments of Latinas who made history in Chicago. And meet local singer and songwriter Gringa, who blends her Venezuelan and Midwestern roots into her country-tinged indie rock. All that coming up, but we first kick things off tonight with Congressman Jesús Chuy García right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
Between Supreme Court decisions upending affirmative action, student loan forgiveness, a battle to raise the debt ceiling, and the ongoing arrival of migrants to Illinois, it's been an eventful summer in government affairs. Joining us now to talk about all that and more is Congressman Jesús Chuy García, Democrat who represents Illinois 4th Congressional District. And I want to welcome you, Congressman. Thank you for being here. There's a lot to talk about and very little time, so let's get started.
Glad to join.
Chicago, as you know, has received over 10,000 migrants since last fall, actually. But so far, the city says not enough federal support has been given to help migrants get situated. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I do agree with the sentiment. I think Mayor Brandon Johnson is taking the right position and maintaining the history and the legacy of being a welcoming city for immigrants from all over. The city hasn't received enough funding. There's money needed for food, for shelter, and other support services, mental health services. We're working in Washington to get more aid to Chicago from FEMA, the Emergency Management Agency. It is needed and warranted, and Chicago isn't alone. Other cities are impacted by this, cities like New York, as you know.
Right, and California as well. They're getting also more migrants right now, so they're dealing with that as well. But what can Illinois representatives like yourself be doing to get the support from the federal government?
We're urging the White House to act. We're urging them to get FEMA to recognize the extraordinary circumstances and to respond. In addition to that, I am leading a letter with over 20 signatories of my colleagues to the White House this week, asking the president to extend employment authorization, not just to the recent arrivals, but to others who have been here in many instances in Chicagoland for decades. Right. If people have the ability to work at a time when the economy is begging for additional workers, it advances our economic interests. It's good for the migrants, and it's less of a burden on government, including local, right, state, and federal government.
Going back with the federal support, how likely is it to happen, and how much would be asking for the government, money-wise?
Well, a significant amount. The city just received about $10 million within the last month. The state received over $20 million, but we need additional funding for that. But again, in addition to providing added support simply by extending employment authorization to these migrants, the problem would probably go away. Right. People aren't looking for handouts. They just want an opportunity to work and to provide for their families while they wait for their hearings before judges in immigration court.
Right. Let's touch a little bit more on that, on those permits, on those work permits. Like you say, if they are able to work, then they become less of a burden, right? And they want to work. They're here because obviously they want to work. So what can the Biden administration be doing in that regard to help in that process?
What we're asking of the president is to extend employment authorization to the migrants that are seeking asylum, to others that are awaiting their day in court. But we're not forgetting about the 11 million or so people who include dreamers or DACA status holders, farm workers. We tried to pass 2 bills in Congress. They passed the House. They're stuck in the Senate that would provide a pathway to citizenship for them. At the very least, they want and I think deserve an opportunity to work peacefully and to contribute to the economy even more so.
More locally here in Illinois, Governor Pritzker ended actually the healthcare enrollment for immigrants at the end of last month. He pointed out that nearly twice the amount of money his administration proposed was provided, and cost still exceeded the budget. What are your thoughts on that decision?
We are urging the governor to continue Illinois' position of leadership in the realm of taking care of immigrants. In this case, people who don't have health insurance. The governor has been a leader in this regard. Illinois, under both Republican and Democratic governors, have been there for immigrants. This will enable us to protect that legacy and ensure that people have an ability to have that coverage. We're in dialogue with the governor, with legislative leaders as well, trying to get at whether or not the analysis that was done may have been overestimated or inflated, and whether there is a lower true cost associated that would enable us to reach a better place in this. But community groups feel very strongly that this is an important fight to win and that people should have access to health care. And if we don't take care of them now, we're going to take care of them later, and it's going to be more costly.
On another topic, the Supreme Court, very important topic actually, they made a major 2 decisions regarding higher education last week, ending affirmative action and canceling student loan forgiveness. This is a big one. What are your thoughts on those decisions, and how do you see them affecting the communities you serve?
This is a huge setback. It essentially ends the right of communities that have suffered marginalization and discrimination for decades the opportunity to access higher education. This is very bad because it takes us back to the days of segregation and exclusion, in my opinion. If we look at what happened in the state of California in their university systems there, when affirmative action was struck down at the University of California, the admission of minorities dropped by 40%. So this is what is in store unless we do something. This is not good. On the topic of student indebtedness and the court citing against those who are indebted, that in Illinois, we ranked number 7 in terms of how much people who graduated, who studied, owed to the tune of $61 billion. That's why I voted against the debt ceiling agreement and the legislation that Republicans passed out of the House of Representatives, because it ends the ability to have student debt relief on the one hand, and it also resumes payments for those who are indebted to loan programs.
And I was going to ask you exactly about your decision for opposing the debt ceiling. Can you talk to us a little bit more about why you opposed?
Extreme Republicans in particular wanted to take us into default, or at least threaten to do so, unless we made draconian cuts to the budget that would affect us in many different ways. For Chicago, would mean less money for roads and bridges, less money to improve Midway and O'Hare Airport, less money for transit safety and reliability. And of course, I didn't even talk about other social programs like access to food and other important services. I wasn't going to vote for something like that. It was needless to do so. We had increased the debt ceiling 29 times under both Republican and Democratic presidents in the past. Congresses had acted responsibly. Once you pass a budget, it is implicit that you are required to come up with the revenues to do that. There was no need to take us to the brink.
We have less than 15 minutes. What do you see happening in that regard by the end of the year?
Well, we continue to see Republicans, a select group of them, act irresponsibly. and very radically. They are now saying that they will not abide by the agreement with the administration, and it shows bad faith.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to thank Congressman García for being with us. And up next, making monuments for Latinas who've played a role in Chicago's history. That's right after this. It's not hard to find monuments of people and events in Chicago, but very few of them were created by the people living in the communities they stand in. As part of the Chicago Monuments Project, which allocated funding from the Mellon Foundation, the Pilsen Latina Histories Monuments Project is beginning the process of creating monuments that represent a fuller spectrum of history depicted by the Latinas who lived it.
We received 2 grants. The first grant was to mostly do planning, but we also have a couple of temporary monuments that we're really excited about doing. One of them is elevating and celebrating the 50th anniversary of Mujeres Latinas en Acción, a really important Latina organization that was started in 1973. We also, with funding from the University of Houston, we built a digital exhibit about a street fair that Mujeres Latinas en Acción put on back in ¡79. It's called Festival de Mujeres. So we're going to be launching this wonderful digital exhibit.
Many people today are not aware of some of these incredibly important historic events that have to do with women, Latinas in the community. As a documentarian, photographer, and former photojournalist, I feel that it's really important to have this history up at the forefront. This is the kind of history that many young people today, women, we're kind of like the OGs, and people are, walking on this history and have to know what it's about. As a member of the LGBTQ community and also as a Latina and proud of my barrio, I'm really excited about being able to participate in this and make something for the city and for ourselves that will continuously engage in dialogue and change the way, in other words, bring forth the way we feel we should be represented.
We'll have more on the monuments as they develop. Up next, we learn how to administer CPR. That's right after this. Listen to this. Black and Latino people experiencing cardiac arrest are less likely than their white peers to receive CPR from a bystander. That's according to a 2022 American Heart Association study. The study also found that even at home, CPR was more likely to be administered to white people. And that's a problem because according to statistics, 52% of Latino men and 43% of Latinas have cardiovascular disease. But health professionals say just about anyone with hands can help save a heart. Joining us now with more are Dr. Nicholas Cosi, Assistant Professor in the Department of Emergency Medicine at Rush Medical College, and Dr. Dan Reyes, a resident physician at Rush University Medical Center. Thank you both for joining us here. We've met before talking about the same subject, but it's good to have you here. And I want to start with you, Dr. Cosi. Can you explain to us a little bit more about exactly what CPR is?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's good to see you again. CPR is chest compressions that are providing resuscitation while somebody's experiencing cardiac arrest, where their heart is not stopping or not sufficiently pumping blood through the body in an appropriate sense.
Okay. And Dr. Reyes, how does CPR help someone actually experiencing cardiac arrest?
Well, so you're basically doing the work that the heart was doing prior to it stopping with your own hands. So you'll put your hands in the right place, and you'll be, with your compressions, you're actually taking right over the heart, and you're squeezing the heart, kind of pushing blood out to where it would ordinarily be going if your heart was actually working.
It's one thing to talk about it. It's another completely different to actually do it. They were here previously and recorded a demonstration, so let's go to the video.
The first thing we're going to do, let's say we encounter a loved one at our home or in public that's not breathing and they're unresponsive. Dr. Reyes is going to start the evaluation right now.
Hey, you all right? You doing okay?
If the patient's not responding, he's going to advise someone to call 911. We're going to activate 911.
Can you call 911, please? Call help, please.
They're going to go ahead and call help. They're not responding. He doesn't hear or see or be able to feel any breath, so he's going to start chest compressions. Right hand, left hand, interspersed like this. Beefy part of the hand, right under the breastbone, hard and fast. Ready? Go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Perfect, Dr. Reyes. Notice a couple things. One, he's not moving his arms up and down. He's moving his actual body up and down, okay? It's going to get tiring to do this, but I know you can do it at home.
Well, that's a great demonstration, actually. I've seen it before, and probably some people have seen it maybe in high school years back. But Dr. Cosi, the study we mentioned earlier showed that Black and Latino people having cardiac arrest in public are 41% less likely to receive bystander CPR. What are your thoughts on that, and that might what are behind the discrepancies, pretty much?
It's an important question. It's a sobering statistic, but more than a statistic, it's impacting people in our community. Rush on the west side of Chicago, a predominantly Hispanic and African-American population on the west side, are experiencing cardiovascular disease, as you mentioned, far outweighing the Caucasian population. It's multifactorial. There's a lot of different reasons why. Some hypothesize that as a result of COVID, as a result of restrictions, when people are more hesitant, if you will, to engage. If you recall those days, early 2020s, resulting with COVID wanting to be more kind of distant than folks. There is well a disproportionate impact that is affecting the Latino and Latina community specifically with CPR as you resulted, which is why this is so important that we're here today trying to teach our members of our community.
And you guys are doing a great job in that regard. Dr. Reyes, you're part of that program, going to the communities and teaching Latinos and just anybody that wants to learn how to do CPR. Those discrepancies also occur in home settings. Does that suggest a lack of education about CPR?
Whether it suggests a lack of education is unclear to me. I think one of the biggest barriers to CPR in general is kind of this phenomenon that in medicine we call activation energy, or just, am I even able to do this? And I think part of what we try to teach to any group that we provide these trainings to, including Latinos, is you can do this just with your two hands. Here are a few steps that you can remember, and we saw it in the demonstration, that you can do this too.
There's two things I want to bridge off those great comments. One, having the education in an accessible language, not just English, but providing this education in Spanish.
Right.
Two, making it accessible and low cost, aka zero, making it free for our community. There's a lot of courses out there that cost money. It's a potential barrier, but we want to, as Dr. Reyes said, lower the activation energy by making this accessible, approachable. We want to go to places of worship, community centers. That's where I think we can start bending that curve the right way for our community.
How can we as bystanders, Dr. Cosi, identify someone that might be having a cardiac arrest?
It's a great question. They can be having difficulty breathing. You might see them turn a different color. They might turn blue, purple. They might not be responsive. If you feel underneath their neck, you won't feel kind of a movement, a beat against your fingers. That's called a pulse. You might not feel that. Those are signs that they're not getting adequate blood supply to their brain or blood supply from the heart. And you should, call 911 and begin administering CPR like Dr. Reyes is showing.
Yeah. You were just talking about the importance about receiving this training in Spanish. Dr. Reyes, what are the resources available for Latinos, especially Spanish speakers, to learn how to do CPR?
I think Dr. Cosi might have more resources in mind than I do, but there are ample trainings that are available on online that you can find through various reputable organizations that provide it in English and Spanish and other languages as well.
And you guys provide training in Spanish as well.
We do,
right?
and that's one of the things we're trying to do is get out there in our community and be more proactive, not necessarily having people come to the hospital, but Rush going into the community to provide this education and training. The Rush 911 group is a supported group from the medical college, supported by our institution. We are taking classes. They are free. We have faculty that are nurses, physicians, ED technicians, resident doctors. We go out there in the community, and we'd be happy to come to a location near you.
Are there times, Dr. Cozy, when it might be dangerous to administer CPR?
Yes, absolutely. We are experiencing ferocious gun violence in our city, as we saw. 73 people were shot around Father's Day weekend. The first thing you need to make sure of before you administer CPR is the area in which you are going into safe? Is the scene safe? We are not asking you to put yourself in harm's way to administer CPR, but if you feel safe in an environment to do CPR, we invite you to do that. And as Dr. Reyes said, you are the help until help arrives.
Definitely. And just lastly, if a single person wants to take a CPR course, do they have to be part of a group to take the course, or can they individually somehow find a way to do the course with you guys?
And you could be part of a group, you could be a single person. You would email rush911@rush.edu, and we'd be happy to have you come to a training and provide that opportunity for you.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Our thanks to Dr. Nicholas Cozy and Dr. Dan Reyes. The experience of growing up with bicultural roots can feel like being caught between two worlds, but it can also feel like having the best of both worlds. Local musician and Southern Illinois native Isabel Olive performs under the name Half Gringa as a tribute to her own culture-spanning upbringing. She says you can hear the best of both of her cultures in the music she creates. Here, she sings her new release, Miranda, at the Color Club venue in Urban Park.
Some nights I'm reading out loud, hoping you'll hear me, Miranda. Back through the years and the sound comes back to haunt you. Please.
When I started writing the song, I was sort of thinking a lot about my identity as a person. It's a song that I think is also about love and a lot about self-love.
It's who you become in the end.
Trying to approach your past and things out of your control in your past that you can approach with care.
Feeling down, closed off, and when the truth hammers over the quad.
I'm a little bit of a pensive person. I have been studying poetry. Both my parents are poets, and so I've always been interested in poetry, writing poetry, and I studied poetry in college. And so that's kind of what my entry point to writing songs was. I didn't really start writing music in earnest until I was like 19.
Reach back and comfort the dead.
Getting into the Chicago music community and seeing what was out there, I realized if you just write one song, like it can be a catalyst and like a doorway that just opens and you're like, oh, actually I can write a song. And now I've written a bunch of songs.
Don't be afraid of desire. Don't be the holy all-knowing.
Half Gringa is a name that basically when I started using it, I was thinking a lot more about my cultural identity, how I grew up biculturally. My mom's from Venezuela, and most of my family lives in Latin America on her side of the family. And I grew up in the Midwest in like a tiny town.
Don't be the bravest out there. You were scared. I was there.
When I struggle to find my place in the Latina community, it sort of helps to orient myself and know it's okay if your Spanish isn't perfect. It's okay if you feel like you have this sort of duality of your identity. Just acknowledging both of those things and interrogating them has been really important in my work, and is something I want to keep doing.
It's who you become in the end.
That was an acoustic version of Miranda. Details on where you can hear the full version on our website. And you can catch Have Gringa performing as part of the Friday night summer concert series at Kilburn Park on Friday, July 14th. Well, that's going to be our show for tonight. Be sure to check our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And while you're there, be sure to check out our Summer Festival Guide. If you were watching us also Friday night, know that you can also catch Latino Voices and Black Voices on Saturdays beginning at 6 p.m. Don't forget also to tune into Noticias Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Muy buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm pleased to give back to the community through numerous charitable initiatives.
Allegations of sexual misconduct by Chicago police against migrants housed at a West Side station, plus the future of NASCAR in Chicago and Mayor Johnson's blueprint for the city's future. All on the Week in Review tonight at 7.
The planning and execution of D-Day.
The Germans did not know when and where the Allied invasion would come.